In fact, that's our next topic for discussion. It's about striding towards a sustainable retail that's better for the planet and the bottom line, which means can sustainability and ROI go together? And we're going to have that discussion right here on the stage. We're going to also look into some of the highlights, especially on if brand leaders, what are they doing towards a sustainable future through their brands and through their work over here. With that, let me go ahead and first invite the moderator for the session. We have with us the chairman for RAI, Mr. Bijao Kurian. Hi, could we have you on the stage, please? And joining them are the speakers, Mr. Mukesh Kumar, Managing Director and CEO for Quest Properties India Limited, RP Sanjeev Goenka Group. We have Shibu Phillips, Business Head, Lulu International Shopping Malls Private Limited. We once again welcome Mr. Muhammad Ali back on stage, please. Joining them is Dilip Kapoor, Founders for High Design, Andrew McVicker, Director for Pragma UK, and Satish Venkatachalaya, Head of Hub Operations and Innovation, H&M Group Business Tech, India Hub. All right, Mr. Kurian, I would hand it over to you, please.
Thank you. And thank you for that lead-in into the subject in terms of your questions. Certainly, it gives me great pleasure to be able to talk about a subject which is the theme of this conference. And I think what we have begun to see is that retail today has gone beyond merely, offline shopping, online shopping, omni-channel, technology, digital transformation. And it has now reached what you might define as the higher order customer needs which are there, and which is about, things that customers are caring for. What we have clearly seen over the years has been that today, Gen Z represents a reasonably large part of our consumption story. And a lot of what brands are trying to do is about making sure that we target and attract the young customer. Across the world, it's the same story. In India, the numbers are large. If you look at Gen Z, it's almost 50% of our population. If you bump it up to include those who are up to 35 years of age, it's 2/3 of our population. So it's not a small number to be sniggered at, because what you are seeing is the opportunity for brands to be able to differentiate and to be able to create a new story. There are several stakeholders involved in the larger sustainability story. The most important stakeholder, of course, is the customer. And what we are seeing is that the customer is demanding sustainability because they believe in it, and certainly the younger customer. Governments are now trying to mandate sustainability. And we are seeing that the Indian government itself is looking at defining sustainability targets. I'm not sure how we're going to get to those targets, but defining sustainability targets and measures that companies will have to adopt and report in a couple of years. We all know about the UN Sustainability Development Goals, or the SDG, as they call it. What we're also seeing is that, certainly driven by international brands, there is now traceability across the entire supply chain. So we are seeing suppliers connected to the sustainability cycle, and these suppliers across, right from wherever they are manufacturing, all the way up to consumers, which is through malls, through high streets, through stores, up to the consumer, is also having to now measure their performance against sustainability. So there are several stakeholders now who are involved in this. So sustainability is not something that we can ignore any longer. It is slowly coming upon us, and it is certainly here to stay, and it is certainly going to be a much larger concern. And when I say concern, not in a bad sense, but just in terms of what you will be looking and aspiring to do and achieve in the years to come. So here I have with me a group of fellow panelists from different areas of retail. Some of them are from, spearheading malls. You heard Ali talk about Forum Malls. Some of them run international businesses. And what we are seeing here is the opportunity to be able to toss this subject amongst them and to be able to understand what they feel about sustainability and the way it's going. So let me start with my good friend, Mr. Dilip Kapoor. And, we've just had some arguments about sustainability. Uh, and my question to him is that he claims to be sustainable by doing a few things. And he will talk about the few things. My question to him is that how does he know that he's actually meeting the sustainability requirements of consumers at large?
All right. It's not the first time we're being accused of maybe being hypocritical. I think greenwashing is something that we should be aware of. I mean, we often claim to be sustainable when we're not. I think sustainability starts, or it's a long process. It starts not only with it starts at the design stage itself for us. You don't move into something which is not going to be sustainable. When then the materials themselves, fortunately we are a vertically integrated company, so it makes it easy for us. But I think for any one of us, what we use as raw material, if it's not sustainable, whatever you do at the end is not going to work. So simple question for us was we use vegetable tan leathers, we use solid brass, things like that. Then the process of manufacturing. As long as you control your own manufacturing, you have some say in it. If you don't control your manufacturing, you're in trouble. We shifted, I don't think we were sustainable until about 4 years ago in that sense. We shifted to our manufacturing to totally being solar energy driven now. In fact, we give away electricity to Pondicherry State. So I think that's the process part of it. In the end of it, when the product is made, what happens with it? Is there waste there? Are you able to reuse it? Well, we try. We take all the leather and shred it up into bits and make handmade paper out of it, which we use for our bags. Even beyond that, I would say that at the end of it, I think our estimation is we're around 60-65%. Now, you're still committing a crime. You're still 35%. If I'm still using some polyester here, some nylon there, some this, some that. We fly our goods by planes, which are very polluting. So what do you do about that? The only solution we can think of at the moment to get over that is to actually start taking pollution and getting rid of it. We have started, for example, we are using fabrics which are made out of yarn that is from PET bottles, plastic bottles that I see on every single table. I'm seeing all the damn plastic bottles there. Those plastic bottles have been converted to yarn, and then, so that's one thing we're looking at. How do we reuse things to get over that? But I doubt if we'll ever achieve anything more than 70-80%. The guilt will still stay. We can be accused of greenwashing, so I don't think we should ever claim to be totally sustainable.
That's okay, as long as you've started on the journey. It's a long journey, we all know.
Yeah.
And you've started on the journey. Nobody knows when we will reach the end of the journey, but as long as you're moving in the right direction, I guess it's okay. Next question to Shibu and to Ali. And I think, Ali kind of alluded to that in his presentation, which is about when you think about a mall and you think of sustainability. You talked about energy conservation in terms of electricity consumption in the design of your new malls. Shibu, if I were to come to you because you're in a massive expansion drive, how do you think sustainability in a mall, starting from design to build to operate?
So Obviously, from a mall perspective, the cost of maintenance of a mall and the major part is taken by electricity. To consume the least is always the endeavor. So obviously, to ensure that you use maximum glass to ensure that there's a lot of daylight coming into the property is a good job. But also, it has its own challenges with respect to losing air conditioning. So we understood that as a challenge, and we came out with something where you don't obviously cover everything, but you also ensure that there's a lot of daylight, which is possible to to use the daylight, and that actually plays good. But it also affects some experience in the food court. But that is something which you'll have to manage and play. Now, when you plan the mall, there are stringent guidelines to ensure that rainwater is consumed. And you normally want to also, when you make malls in parts of India where rains are good, and now they are obviously not of a season, it's coming anytime. So we maximize that out and storage capabilities within the whole catchment, and we ensure that that is used properly. We ensure that we integrate our STP very well to ensure that all the consumption of cooling towers, because we use, water-based cooling systems, is through the STP, STP-derived water. So that also you save, and also you don't throw out anything, and you don't pollute the, your lakes and your adjoining streams. Third is to ensure that we manage in such a way that all the waste generation, which is close to around 5 tons a day, is not thrown out to dump yards or not thrown out to fill landfills. You use organic waste converters to ensure that these becomes manures for your property, and also you can give it to consumers who can develop their own vegetable gardens within, and that's become a norm nowadays that everyone has a small garden. So these are planned in such a way that all of these designs with respect to your roofs to reduce the consumption of lighting, but manage your air conditioning, to ensure that your cooling towers are managed. You also, something which we now do with the roofing is that you cover most of your roofing with solar panels, so that at least 40%, 50% of your power is consumed from there, and you also derive some power through your PTCs, where you trade power through solar and wind farms, so that also is an effective way to ensure that it's sustainable. You also, in India, traffic is the issue, though, so you want people to more use, transportation systems which are common. So you integrate your mall with metros, you integrate your mall with systems which can be used as a common platform for consumers to come into your property. So metro is something which is deriving close to 28% of our footfalls in our property in Kochi. So that's something which we want to achieve. You want to ensure that people come with the EV vehicles because that's a trend, and you provide them charging stations within the mall. So this is something which, as a mall, we have to plan in our earlier planning stages, and we obviously do that. And it also works for us because there's a lot of saving which happens, and you manage your mall very effectively, and consumers also and retailers also, understand when you show those savings to them through your common area maintenance.
Sure, thank you. Ali, if I were to switch that question to you, and if you could focus a little more on selection of tenants and operations of the mall.
Yeah. I think Shibu has highlighted most of the points which are covered by the government bodies, Pollution Control Board, how you renew your pollution control license. But Shibu, and Biju, what I would like to say is that the sustainability and renewable energy, the environmental concern as such, has to happen at the planning stage, very, very nascent stage, which you rightly pointed out. And it has to happen along with the users, because a mall cannot be designed in isolation. Because if I am guessing, then I might be wrong. So we know everybody, so we need to collaborate. And there is a challenge there. The challenge is that when we sit across the table and when we are discussing that we are designing the mall, we are in designing phase, how much can we do about renewable energy and sustainability? There is very less interest because we are very busy. We are all going very fast, There's no time to discuss a subject like this. So, and if I make it part of a lease deed, a clause in the lease deed, nobody will sign. They'll say, all these points, you please remove. This is all new. We don't want. So we fail at the planning stage, and no matter what we do later on, it's not going to help us. So it has to be planned together, one. Two, in most of the times, now food industry is going through this cycle. When we are discussing with restaurants, they are saying a new form of cooking is based on electricity. It's induction cooking. So there's very less usage for gas bank. And then people want more power than ever before. So most of the restaurants have doubled, or in some cases more than double the power requirement. I think malls are guzzlers of energy. When you talk about energy in terms of electricity, even air conditioning is electricity, and in terms of water. So I think this planning, because 80% of the consumption of energy is happening through the trading areas. That is where the stores occupy, where stores are using. So we are inside the mall, but outside the store. So 80% of the initiative, 80% of the thought process, 80% of the planning, 80% of the input will have to come in from the occupiers. A cinema operator, whether it's a food court operator, the kitchens who are operating, the restaurants who are operating, the gaming arcades, all of these guys need to innovate and share with us what is it that they are looking at and how we can actually add value. Like in some of the properties that we build, in fact, all the malls that we build, there has been some energy that we have given back to the government because everybody projects high, but actually not using. So there is a demand load and then there is a peak load. So there has always been a difference between what a retailer demands initially and what they actually end up using. And then we might go and surrender the power back, but the infrastructure is already plugged in. So that's a national waste actually. So in terms of water, but thankfully we have this process which Shibu mentioned. 100% of air conditioning runs on the recycled water. So all the water coming in from the toilets and then the entire recycled system is based in such a way that all the air conditioning is coming from the recycled water. So we don't depend much on water except for the RO water that we need to provide for food. But that RO water consumption is actually drawing a lot of natural water. If restaurants design preparation of food in a certain way, that consumption will come down. Otherwise, I'll have to provide. So hence, my suggestion here would be that it's a double-edged sword. So one side, I am planning the entire mall, 1 million square feet, but 80% of that space is utilized by different parties. They need to get on board. They need to plan. They need to plan their MEP, the mechanical, electric, plumbing requirements, which I don't see happening. In fact, from 2004 to now, the requirement in terms of energy has only doubled. The air conditioning requirements have doubled, the lighting requirements have doubled, and the water requirements have doubled. So I think it is something that we need to discuss at the initial stage, everybody take it seriously and work towards building that system right at the inception.
Sure. Thanks, Ali. And switching this question to Andrew. Andrew, in terms of, Ali talked about some of the challenges in encouraging tenants to adopt sustainable measures. When you look at it, how do you see the bigger challenges in adopting sustainability as a theme?
I think the big challenge that we see is there's no standard definition of sustainability, particularly across the retail sector, that some of the other sectors, such as office, for example, have been able to establish. And therefore, as Dilip was talking about, the accusation of greenwashing is always there because there isn't that standard response that says this is the level of measure that we're taking. I think clearly there's a need for both landlords and tenants to work together on this, and I'd absolutely echo the thoughts of Mr. Ali around the need to work together, to share data, to share aspirations for how sustainability measures can be prioritized. I think fundamentally the industry is always focused on economic metrics going forward, and ultimately when you get down to what is this going to cost, what do I want in my lease structure, a lot of these measures are simply struck out at that stage and therefore don't advance. But I think coming back to the question that you posed at the start around Generation Z, if we take the Americanism, while we may not believe in all of it ourselves, we may not be as socially aware ourselves, that audience by 2030 will be your audience, whether you're mall operators, whether you are retail brands yourselves. And you need to be aligned with what they believe in. And that audience prioritize sustainability as one of their top 3 measures going forward. And so really getting on board with some of those measures alongside economic performance will be crucial, I think, to ultimately the success of all our businesses.
Thanks, Andrew. And switching to Satish, because you're an international brand, Andrew talked about the larger body of consumers across the world who are now demanding sustainability in brands. As a brand, H&M has actually taken the first step forward in doing things well ahead of requirements. So when you think about the kind of practices that you follow, and maybe as examples to other retailers out here, starting from your supply chain all the way up to your stores, how do you think sustainability at H&M?
Thanks, Bijoy. H&M brand, we operate in 75 countries with close to about 5,000 stores. So when we look at sustainability, because being the market leaders in fashion, it's our responsibility to ensure that the industry is also steered towards some of these practices. And our endeavor has been to, from the point of design all the way till use of our products, there are sustainable practices in place. And then there's a whole host of information that we have on our website, and we can go into that. But just to elicit a few of the things that the customers see when they look at some of the practices that we have. So one, if you go into any of our stores, there is a place where we can collect clothes, used clothes, right? And then these get into both reuse as well as upcycle as well as recycle kind of approaches. We've also done a fair amount of investment in technology. We've got in one of our stores in Stockholm, where we have a machine where you can actually use your old fabric or your old clothes and recycle them. Of course, there'll have to be some introduction of virgin fiber into being able to do it, but you will be in a position to actually create your own new product out of it, right? We've also got repair in our stores in some of the markets, right? Because we want to encourage our customers, if your button is not working or some part of it needs to be fixed, come and get it fixed rather than just throw it into that, right? But I think the more important aspect is also about us looking at, how do we create circular business models. We've got partnerships with organizations like Selfie in Europe, where there's a lot of resell that happens through our stores as well as online and through our partner Selfie. We've invested in companies like RenewCell through our investment arm, which uses viscose and cellulose waste and converts that into reusable fiber. So it goes back to what the organization makes in terms of decision making on each of these elements. So from all the way from design to ensuring that our products are built to last, to being able to allow our customers to use our products better. I think that's what a lot of sustainable practices are being encouraged throughout our business.
Thanks, thank you. I think there's a lot of work that you are doing at H&M. Mukesh, if I were to switch to you, when you look at a mall, and you've run chains of malls, and you're now running a single mall. So when you really think about it, in terms of choosing practices to operate with, and you've seen it from the retail side, and you've also seen it from the mall side. Are there some good examples that you could pull out of what we've been able to do in the mall and through retailers, which has certainly helped in pushing the sustainability agenda?
Biju, what has happened past 3-4 years, today when you talk to any retailer or a developer or a designer about sustainability, it's not something very new. They're already aware of this. Today, if you talk to retailers saying that you need to reduce energy consumption because rather having a natural bulb, you need to have LED. I don't think you need to push a point because they understand that very well. Today, you talk to a developer about investing more money in whether it is a painting or air conditioning or the flooring. You don't need to push a point again once again because they know it's going to give you benefits towards sustainability. So today I think won that battle already. Today people are aware. There's a lot of awareness about sustainability, whether it is talk with the retailer or a theater operator or F&B. Even if it costs little extra money, I think they're willing to pay that extra money. Today talk about the food court, you say you don't have to use those plastic cups, they may be cheaper. I don't think there's an issue. That's okay, fine, I can spend double the amount, it's all right. Using a plastic, removing plastic glasses, having a paper glasses, talk about not using plastics in the stores. I don't think it's a challenge anymore, which used to face few years back. Today, they know the consumers are evolved, they're aware of this, they're willing to pay a little extra. So I think we have won that battle already, and we don't have to push this point to anyone.
Sure. So then what are the challenges in getting people to switch to the sustainability agenda, if the point is well taken?
Of course, the cost is very, very important. Some people still have, they feel that it's a constraint. There are customers which are evolved. They don't mind paying a little extra, but in case they are not evolved, for them the price is the most important thing. If they are cost sensitive, they may not like to pay. To retailers, sometimes they little hesitate. Should my product be a little more expensive than my competition? Should my packaging be a little more expensive than somebody else? If that becomes an issue, then there is certain hesitation, which we could see with the retailers and any other operator as well.
Okay, good.
I just want to add one more thing, Biju. As an industry, as a shopping mall industry, I don't know how many of you know that we have close to 130 million square feet mall area what we're operating in the country, close to 700 malls. We have 12 million people working in the malls, and close to 2.5 to 3 crores people walking into these malls every month. So we have a very large responsibility. And I think I'm very happy that most of the malls, including us, they have been really working on this, how to make it more sustainable so that we make the difference to the entire country and the environment.
Thank you. So I can see the time's up. I know we've got a slightly shortened session because we've had to catch up with the delay that we started with. So what you can see and hear from the panel so far has been that clearly, as Andrew mentioned, sustainability is high on the agenda. In fact, that was something that everybody said. Clearly, what you can also understand is that it is not a small number. The number of people who represent Gen Z, where the awareness levels are certainly much higher than the other generations, that number is large as of today and expected to grow larger. Both retailers, through the entire supply chain, whether you make the products yourself, like Dilip Kapoor of High Design, or whether you're sourcing it from across the world, like Satish of H&M, have started to build sustainability measures into manufacturing, into supply chain, into the use of electricity, into the reuse of products. So you can see that it's a virtuous cycle there in terms of use, reuse, recycle, upcycle, all of that. You can also hear from the mall operators that they are trying to build sustainability into design of malls to start with, insisting on certain sustainability practices within the mall. In terms of operations and maintenance, they're trying to make sure that in terms of energy conservation, in terms of emission, in terms of water usage, there is a lot that they're trying to do to try and reduce the footprint of this usage. So all I'd like to conclude on this session is that sustainability today has become a very, very important agenda, certainly across the world. Retail is not an exception to this. All players in retail, whether they're brands and suppliers, or whether they're retailers, or whether they're mall operators, are currently obsessed with the idea. There are challenges in terms of cost to adopt these ideas, but in the long run, it is here to stay, and the faster we get to it, the better it is for us. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for a very patient listening to this panel.